Hi, my name is Drew Locher. Welcome to our series, Value Stream Mapping, Tips and Tricks, Episode 5. In the fourth episode, we continued our discussion on future state mapping. In that episode, we reviewed the second and third future state questions that embody the key concepts of value add and non-value add, and flow. In this episode, we will review the remaining future state questions. How can interruptions in the flow be controlled? In other words, where must we apply the concept of pull? Pull is a key concept of lean. Then we will discuss how to level the volume and/or mix of work. Leveling, or hijunket, is another key concept. Next, how will we manage the new process? It is not sufficient to simply change the workflow. We must also change the manner in which we manage the process, or value stream. Last, we will ask what process improvements will be necessary. So, how will interruptions in the flow be controlled? The previous question covered in episode 4 prompted the team to identify ways to improve flow. Ideally, we would have a value stream with uninterrupted flow, and at times this is possible. However, typically there will be some points in the value stream where interruptions can be expected. Using a manufacturing example, it may be possible to design a production cell that practices one-piece flow throughout, from the first step to the finished product. However, the materials from suppliers will require periodic deliveries, weekly or daily. Therefore, there is an interruption to flow that must be controlled. This is accomplished by application of the lean concept of pull. Think of pull as a decision system. In this example, it will help us to decide when to order materials from suppliers and how much, so that there is no disruption in the production flow. A pull system could be installed after production because continuous flow to the customer cannot be assured. In this case, it will help us to decide what to make, when to make it, and in what quantity in order to ensure continued service to the customer. In the example shown on this slide, let's say we can conceive a system where we can apply continuous flow concepts for processes A, B, and C, and also for processes D, E, and F. However, for some reason, we do not believe we can flow between C and D, that an interruption will occur between these two processes. To use an office or service example, perhaps we must wait for a response from a customer after process C. We cannot move forward to D until the response has been received. How will this interruption be controlled? Do we want the people performing processes A, B, and C to continue to work on the next unit of work, whatever that unit is, a job, an order, a quote? If so, for how long? Do we want them to stop? If so, when should they start back up? If left unchecked, the queue of work in between A, B, C, and D, E, F can continue to grow uncontrollably. This can create many problems as the waste of overproduction, which is more than is needed, sooner than is needed, increases. Quality issues will tend to be larger, time in the system will be longer. Continuing to push work can actually have a negative impact on customer service. This is one of those counterintuitive lean concepts. In manufacturing, materials can pile up, consuming more space, undermining workplace organization, and generating more transportation waste. To be clear, we always want to flow, but where we cannot, we should apply pull. A pull system consists of 4 elements. First, we must have visibility to the queue of work. We must always know how much there is in the queue. Second, we must apply limits to the queue. What is the maximum allowable? It may also be desirable to have a minimal amount as well, to ensure that processes D, E, F, in this example, can continue to work uninterrupted. Next, we need decision rules. What decision or decisions should be made when the maximum is reached, or when the minimum is reached? The fourth element is to use visual signals that our work are managed. The people performing the work should be able to make the proper decisions at the appropriate times. They shouldn't need managers, schedulers, or others to tell them. Kanban is another word for visual signal that some of you may be familiar with. Once in place, a pull system should greatly simplify the scheduling of the value stream. Here are two examples. In the system depicted in the upper graphic of this slide, we have three processes, A, B, and C. For various reasons, we just don't see how they continuously flow between them. Perhaps each process involves resources, people, and/or equipment that produce different work. Think of the multitasking nature in an office environment where people are responsible for several activities. Or think of machines in a production environment where each machine can make many different parts or products. Pull systems are put in place between each process. In this example, the formal pull system is a supermarket. Just like a food market, there will be a proverbial shelf with some quantity of product on it at all times. Only process C needs to be scheduled in this example in order to schedule the entire value stream. Process B will know what to make and when to make it based on a pull system. Same for process A. No need for detailed and separate schedules for each process, as is often done in organizations. A different system is depicted in the lower graphic. A different form of pull system is depicted along with the supermarket. It is called a sequential pull system. Once again, we have a supermarket between processes B and C, and a queue is still expected to form between processes A and B. However, there is no assumption that every type of work that process A can produce will be on the shelf at all times. That is what is implied with the supermarket pull system. What is in queue between processes A and B will vary based on actual demand. Process C is still scheduled, but this time the signal will go to process A that tells them what to make and when to make it. The desired sequence in this example is first in, first out, or FIFO. Process B must process the work as it arrives to it. It cannot make other decisions, or the system will not be following the prescribed scheduling of work. Sequential pull systems are commonly used in office and service value streams. Think of check-in lines at a hotel or check-out lines at a store. When the queue grows to a prescribed maximum amount, what decisions should be made? Another person should be pulled to staff the front desk at the hotel or at another register at the retail store. This ensures that the queue doesn't grow more than is desirable, keeping customers flowing and satisfied. We should always be looking to simplify the scheduling of a value stream. People in the value stream should be clear on priorities at all times. In the system depicted in this figure, we once again see the processes A, B, and C can flow, and separately, processes D, E, and F. However, a queue is expected to form between processes C and D. Of course, there can also be a queue of work that can form at the very beginning of the value stream. The single point of schedule in this example is the processes A, B, C. A, B, C will select from the queue before it based on due date. This is very common in project type work, where different projects have different due dates. You wouldn't want to begin work on a project that is not due for weeks, say, when there are projects due in the next few days. Processes D, E, F will simply process work as it comes to them in a first in, first out basis. Now, we must put some limits on the FIFO lane, as it is called, to prevent reverting to push. In this example, a maximum of 3 has been set. Once that limit is reached, the people performing A, B, C stop working. What should they do? That will depend on the decision rules that have been established. Perhaps they will help the people performing D, E, F, since they are clearly getting behind. Or perhaps it is desirable for those resources to perform other non-related work. In either case, they must be prompted to return to perform A, B, C. That is where establishing a minimum quantity for the FIFO lane can help. Once the minimum is reached, the resources return to perform A, B, C. As I said earlier, the ideal value stream has no interruptions in flow, but we must be practical. In manufacturing, downtime on particular equipment might be expected periodically due to changeover or unplanned maintenance. Do we want the flow of the downstream processes to be interrupted? We might intentionally install a pull system of some form to buffer for this possibility. The next future state question is, how do we level the mix and/or volume of work? Leveling is a very deep concept in Lean. Let's start the discussion on leveling the volume of work. First, is there substantial variation in the demand on the value stream? If so, can root causes for this variation be identified and addressed in the future state design? Don't be too quick to say no. Experience has shown that much variation in demand in many value streams is artificially created. Perhaps there is a surge in orders at the end of a month due to incentives for customers that influence them to purchase at this time. Can those incentives be reconsidered? An office example is month-end closing of the books by accounting. There is a surge of activity at the beginning of each month that imposes great demand on accounting and other folks in the organization. Is it possible to perform some of the activities for the month-end closing process throughout the month? The answer is yes. We will discuss the mix of work a little bit later in the presentation. Another possibility is what is called demand amplification, or the bullwhip effect. Errors in forecasting and scheduling at one point of the value stream can have a snowball effect going back upstream. This often is what happens through supply chains of different suppliers. Large batch processing at one point of the value stream can also cause this. In office environments, a cause of this unlevelness in demand is a lack of set timing of activities. Office personnel will determine their own routines for performing the various activities they are responsible for. Some weeks they may perform a task on Tuesdays. Other weeks, the same activity is performed Thursdays. From the perspective of the recipient of the work, the demand really varies. However, this is due to the variation in the timing of work by the quote-unquote supplier. This can and should be addressed in the future state design. As we just described, the multitasking nature in many office environments can create unlevelness. The same can be said for manufacturing processes that make different products. In this example, let's say a manufacturing process makes 3 products, A, B, and C, and they are each made once a week. Is it possible to make each product every day? This will level the mix of products and better assure continued supply to the next process or processes in the value stream that consume the products. If every product every day is better than every product every week, then it could be argued that every part or every product every hour is better yet. How much flexibility can really be created? That will depend on the reasons for inflexibility and the need to batch. For manufacturing processes, this typically means changeover time, switching from one product to the next. You can replace the term product with process in this slide and have the same discussion about office and services. Most office personnel perform multiple tasks as part of their overall responsibilities. How should the scheduling of these tasks be organized? Often, the current routine is left up to the person responsible for performing them. The result is commonly a schedule that is convenient for that person, but not necessarily what is best for the overall value stream or value streams that they are involved in. What about the mix of work? Orders aren't all the same. Quotes aren't quotes. Some may be more complex than others, thereby requiring more time to process. Projects can require significantly different amounts of time to complete. Is there any way to sequence the work so that it maintains a more level demand on the system? Perhaps it is desirable to mix easy orders with difficult orders, if that is possible. In the example shown on this slide, the desired sequence for the pull system is easy, difficult, or ED-ED. Of course, in such a system, there still needs some element of first in, first out. Otherwise, you have the possibility for first in, still here, or fish. In other words, work getting buried and never getting processed. So an additional decision rule involving time would need to be added. Perhaps the variation in the type of work is of a different nature. Let's say that some orders will need to be rushed through the system to ensure shorter lead times than what the system was designed for. It must be said that if flow concepts have been applied in the future state, the amount of rush orders should decline significantly. but perhaps the need to expedite an order through the value stream still exists. How will they be handled in the future state? The key is to understand the nature of the variation and have the value stream mapping team identify ways to minimize the impact and better accommodate it in the future state design. The next future state question is, how will we manage the new process? It is insufficient to change the workflow alone. The manner in which the new process will be managed must also be changed. There are several aspects to consider here. First, what is the appropriate frequency to review performance of the process or value stream? Most often, management periodically reviews performance of a process or value stream. The frequency is commonly monthly and sometimes weekly. Lean enterprises have very short management timeframes. Reviewing performance even weekly means that up to a week may have been lost before a necessary response has been identified and enacted. Valuable time would have been lost forever. Reviewing performance frequently, say daily or even more frequently, also helps to bring a cadence to the work. Cadence or tempo is often missing in office and service work, and sometimes in manufacturing as well. Do not underestimate the benefit of establishing such a tempo. As I often say, take care of the hours and days, and the weeks and months will take care of themselves. Now, we do not want to spend a lot of non-value added time determining how the value stream is performing. That is why we strongly recommend the application of visual management techniques. They are effective and, if properly designed, easy to maintain. And they consist of more than backwards-looking outcome metrics that are calculated and updated periodically. What is also needed are more real-time process metrics that can drive timely decision-making and action when necessary. Real-time or near real-time status of key queues to trigger reallocation of resources is more effective than a calculated average time in the queue for, say, the past week. Think of the nature of metrics on the dashboard of your automobile. The speedometer is a real-time process metric. Trouble lights are a form of binary metric. The condition is either okay or not. When not, a light and perhaps a buzzer comes on to inform the driver of this condition. An outcome metric, such as fuel mileage, is calculated periodically. Outcome metrics have their place and use. They can provide insight on trends and patterns. They can be used to measure the effectiveness of changes made in a process or value stream. But outcome metrics alone are insufficient to effectively manage a process or value stream. Very importantly, visual management, when properly executed, can be used to engage team members in managing the process and in continuously improving it. A comprehensive visual management system should always include devices used for continuous improvement. Targets for the various metrics will be part of this, along with idea boards, a way of tracking the various improvement initiatives, and other elements. The last question is, what process improvements will be necessary? In practice, the answers to this question were generated during discussion of the previous future state questions. We use this question to clarify the improvements that will be necessary to make the future state a reality. This question is not, I repeat, not meant to be a catch-all where the team members brainstorm all of the improvements that could be made, but rather what needs to be made given the vision depicted in the future state map. The Kaizen lightning burst icon is used to identify the necessary changes. These should be added to the future state map. Once the future state has been designed, the data boxes for each process box depicted should be filled in. This step requires the value stream mapping team members to more deeply think about the future state. I often tell the team, yes, I know what I'm asking you to do is unfair, but we need to do it nonetheless. By that I mean fill in the data boxes. They will have more certainty about projecting lead times in the future state. There will be less certainty about estimating process times and quality-related metrics. The discussions that follow provide another level of clarity that I discussed earlier. Of course, the team should also recalculate the various summary metrics for the envisioned future state. This will be another check of what is being recommended is indeed in the right direction to meet the established goals for the value stream redesign. At this point, it is strongly recommended to socialize the future state map. The team should share it with others, not just with management, but other team members who will be affected by the changes envisioned. This helps greatly in terms of gaining buy-in from the organization, beyond the value stream mapping team, who has been deeply involved so far. This brings episode 5 to a close. To summarize the key points covered, first, a pull system. The concept for which is embedded in one of the future state questions is really just a decision system that helps control the flow of work when interruptions occur. Remember that there are several forms of pull systems: supermarkets and sequential pull. Second, leveling is another key concept of lean and is also embedded in one of the future state questions. A more robust future state can be designed if sources of unlevelness can be addressed or planned for. Remember that there are various aspects of leveling: the volume of work and the mix of work. If such unlevelness exists, it must be addressed. Otherwise, it often becomes a cause for the future state not performing to expectations once it has been implemented. Next, the manner in which the value stream will be managed in the future must also be addressed. Lean management techniques must be applied. These include visual management, regular huddles, team member engagement, continuous improvement, and other elements. Finally, clarity on the part of the value stream mapping team on what the future state map depicts is critical to success. It will be the responsibility of the team members to socialize the map and the concepts that it represents. Having clarity will greatly help here. Remember that the process described to create the future state map, using the future state questions, creating a proper future state map, recalculating the overall metrics, all provide layers of clarity. Additional layers will be described in the next episode. I have found through my years of experience that the more clear the mapping team is on what the future state truly depicts, greatly increases the probability for success in the implementation of that vision. I hope that you found the information provided useful and that you will join us for the 6th and final episode of the series.